yet another expression of teaching. This one, Leturgia, prayer.
I'm going to speak to you from the back for a second because I've got to launch a video in a minute. But what we're going to tell you about is a place called St. Gregory of Nyssa Episcopal Church in San Francisco. Has anyone heard of St. Gregory?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah, quite a few. Great. Well, St. Gregory's is a really powerful place, and I want to read this quote because it hits on something we've talked about a lot today, and it's good to hear it from different angles. They say, "We are dedicated to sharing the gospel through liturgy, art, music, and dance. Visitors in large numbers come from the greater Bay Area and from afar because of our unique approach to worship that is embodied in the artful and art-filled physical space of our church." So this is a community that celebrates the visual arts, the musical arts, and you get the sense of that when you look at their building, especially the inside. If you've seen pictures of the inside of St. Gregory, there's all these dancing saints. I forget how many of them, but it's quite something. And so again, just like we saw in some of the other examples, in their mark of prayer and of worship, St. Gregory's is in some ways doing a little more than sharing who they are with their community, and they seek out lots of ways to be involved in their community in an authentic way. And so
if I could just put a little, I was living in California, in the Diocese of California, when St. Gregory of Nyssa was founded. And if you know the adage, form follows function, this congregation came into being out of a vision that two priests shared for a church that would express first century liturgical tradition. They did not have the beautiful space they have now when they started. They built a community around a vision with a space that was not perfect for what they needed at all, but they made it work. And enough people were invited into this experience of being church together in this form that they ultimately were able to do what we all know how to do, a capital campaign, raise the money, and build this extraordinary space that is a form that reflects their purpose, their function, their vision, their mission. But for those of us in buildings that aren't perfect for what we believe God's calling us to do, you can still be who God's calling you to be. Don't let your architecture or your space confine your ideas. Don't let your imagination be stuck where the building was right in some year that it was built. But there is a great example of a congregation teaching itself and the world what it believes through its liturgy. That through its gathering, it communicates something that is not of this world. It is something of the divine, something of the hope of the gospel.
I just want to share one or two more comments about the video. One of them is, there's something about the enthusiasm there that is just really, it's just contagious. And I think that's something that we need to remember, is that enthusiasm covers up a multitude of sins. Those of you who are musically trained, some of that singing wasn't great. That tenor had, and don't get me wrong, I can't sing that high, but there was some pitchness issues there, and but the person belted it out and was enthusiastic about it. And that makes a big difference. You can tell when you walk in, as Lisa and I do often, to a church we haven't been to before, and feel that the Spirit is there and that people are enthusiastic and happy to be there. And you can feel when it goes the other way. And so one reason we really wanted to show the video was just to see that visual of just a bunch of people who are excited to be in church. And so that's one comment we wanted to share. The second is, we have a quote, so Donald Shell, one of the people involved in helping start that community, was...
Two clergy were Rick Fabian and Donald Shell, just to give them credit for St. Gregory.
Yeah, and this dovetails on what we talked about before, but when he was with us at the center for an unrelated meeting back in the fall, we were having dinner with him. And he said, I'm most interested in the times in the church when the liturgy was popular. And what he means by that was, was a part the surrounding cultural thing. I mean, think about Stations of the Cross in Jerusalem in the 4th century. Like that kind of thing. And you can see that the liturgy going on in this video is drawn from bits and pieces of those times in the past when the liturgy of the church had been popular, has been of the people. And I think a question we should always be asking ourselves is, what would liturgy like that look like today? And St. Gregory's has one answer that involves vesture and music and stuff from another time, but it works in that context. What might work in your context? And so again, sometimes that's using videos in church or what have you. We can't answer that question for you, but the people of your congregation, and your neighborhoods and communities, and those things matter to liturgy. I think is ultimately the lesson that we might take from St. Gregory's. They also do a great job of integrating their mark of prayer and worship with their service. And some of you maybe have seen videos of people coming in on a weekday for a free farmers market inside the worship space. It's beautiful, images of just tons of produce coming in to that round church space, and for the homeless and low-income people in that neighborhood to be able to come into a church building and to walk around and look at all of that fruit of the earth and take some home with them is a powerful thing. So again, these things are all integrated, and that act of being at a very San Francisco-esque food pantry inside the church building, I find to be inside the worship space to be very powerful.